In this phase, we're going to add a scoreboard to our game. We're going to lock our background and game layers, and we're going to add a layer on top of it for our heads-up display. Make sure you have your USB flash drive connected and that your step-by-step project guide is somewhere handy. We're going to create a new layer. We're going to call it HUD. We're also going to create a scoreboard object type. We're going to add a custom font to our project, and then we're going to be able to track our score using a global variable and some events that we're going to code. So let's get started. As always, I begin with my step-by-step project guide. This time we're in the keeping score section. I already have my project open in Construct 2. I want you to go to layers. The first thing we're going to do is lock the existing layers we have. Make sure background and game are both locked. We need to create a new layer. This new layer is going to be for our scoreboard. We're going to call it HUD, H-U-D. HUD stands for Heads Up Display. It's a game design terminology for the layer that keeps the score, the lives, any of the vital information. This is going to be a very special layer, this HUD layer. I want you to set some of its properties. In the properties bar, go to opacity and set it to 80. This is going to make the heads up display layer somewhat see-through. The other thing we're going to set is called parallax. We're going to set that to 0, 0. Parallax is an interesting word. I like to think about it like this. Imagine you're driving down the highway and you're going 65, 75 miles an hour. You know that your car is traveling really fast, but if you look off into the distance and you see the mountains don't appear to be moving whatsoever. That's the best way to think about parallax. In our game, you're going to be able to move throughout the layout, but the scoreboard is always going to stay in the same location, and that's what we use parallax for. Let's move on to creating our scoreboard. Go to the project bar, and under object types, right-click Insert, New Object. We're going to introduce you to a different type of plugin, text. So far we've done sprites, we did a tiled background, we've done particles. Text is a special plugin that you can create object types of. Our scoreboard is going to be textual, so this is a perfect choice for us. Let's give it the name scoreboard, uppercase S. And as you can see, when the crosshair appears, it shows that it's going to go onto the HUD layer. Go ahead and click. We don't have an image to associate with the scoreboard because it's a text object, but we do need to set some of its properties. We are going to position this using the X and Y coordinates. So go over to the properties bar, and we're going to position our scoreboard at 1620 for X and 0Y. This is the upper right-hand corner. No matter where we go on our layout, the scoreboard is always going to stay right there. And that's because we set that parallax property. We're going to set the size to 250 pixels wide, 100 tall. And down below, we're going to change the font face. I'm going to keep it Arial, but we're going to change the size to 72. Press OK. We're also going to give it a custom color. Go to Other, go to Custom, and for the red channel, we're going to use 51. For the green channel, we're going to use 56. And for the blue channel, we're going to choose 57. Looks like a dark gray. And then finally, we're going to align the text horizontally to the right. Construct 2 does a lot of things well, but the fonts that come with it are pretty boring. We can add custom fonts as long as we have the right file types. Every browser is a little different, so we have a bunch of different file types that we need to include to bring in a custom font. We're going to be including a custom font called Almendra Bold to our project. If you go to the project bar, you'll see that we've already dealt with a lot of the elements that make up a Construct 2 game: layouts, event sheets, object types. Now we're going to work with the one called Files to bring in our custom font. Right-click, Import Files. Under the game's assets, you'll see there's a bunch of files that start with Almendra. This is the style sheet, and these are all of the custom font files that are needed to support all the different browsers. So anything that starts with Almendra, except for this .otf, you're going to need to include in the project. What you can do is hold down Control and click on them until you have all 5 listed in your project guide. Then you can press Open. Now you'll see that they're included under this Files directory. Now that I have the custom font as part of my project, I can assign it to the different text object types. This is something you have to do programmatically, so what I normally choose to do is create a family and put all of the text objects that need this custom font within it. Go to Families, Add Family. Right now we only have one text object type that we want to give the Almendra bold font, so we're going to put it in our family. And then we need to rename this family to the name of our font, Almendra Bold. As you can see, the scoreboard object type is part of it. When the layout loads, I need to assign this custom web font to anything within this Almendra Bold family. So I'm going to go up to my event sheets, go to the start and end level event sheet. And this is going to happen on any level. So I'm going to be using this custom font throughout my game. If we go to the start level group, we'll see that it has the one special condition, the system on start of layout condition that fires once per layout. We want to add an action to what we already have here. Currently, we're setting the coins left global variable. We're activating the player. We want to do one more thing. Let's do add action. Let's choose our Almendra Bold family. And what we want to do is we want to set the web font that we just added to the project to this family. So find where it says Set Web Font. The font family name is Almendra Bold. And the CSS, this is basically telling us what's the location of the style sheet. Well, we put it in the files directory, so it's just part of our project. Almendra Bold.css. So our font family name, Almendra Bold, all one word, lowercase, and our CSS URL, the path to our CSS file, Almendra Bold.css. Press done, and let's drag this action to be the first one that occurs in our event block. The first thing that happens at the start of any layout. So if we were to play the game now, we should have a scoreboard, and that scoreboard should have the fancy Almendra Bold custom font that I added to the project. Let's go ahead and play the game and see if that's the case. Notice how in the upper right hand corner, you see it says text. That's not a big deal. We're going to change that soon. We're going to update that with the score. What I want you to notice when you play the game, because we set that parallax property, the score is always in the upper right hand corner. But now we have to get to the job of adding our score to the game. Inside this start and end level event sheet, we are going to add a global variable that's going to allow us to keep track of the score. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's right click, add global variable, and let's call it score with a capital S. It's going to be numeric, so it's going to be a number. The initial value is going to be 0, and the meaningful description is going to be current score of the game. Press OK. So in addition to our coins left global variable, we're also going to have a score global variable. One thing I forgot to do earlier, I want you to go back to the scoreboard. Now that we've played the game, you see that you could, if you wanted to, set the text right here in the properties. We saw how when we just played the game, how in the upper right hand corner it said text. Well, that comes from right here. Go ahead and get rid of that value for the text property of the scoreboard. What we're going to do is use Construct2's event system to update the scoreboard. On the start of any layout, the first thing we want to do is update the scoreboard. So click on Add Action, and let's choose the scoreboard. What do we want to do? We want to set the text. It's a text object. What do we want to set it to? We want to set it to the value of the score global variable. This is, after all, keeping track of the score. And let's press Done. Let's play it now and see what you see. Now you see it, a big old 0. The thing that's missing is I'm collecting coins, but you don't see the score incrementing. It doesn't go up at all. The reality is we're going to have to track the score of the player throughout the entire game, and we're going to have to update the scoreboard whenever appropriate. While we're still on the start and end level event sheet, let's think about one of those times in which we're going to have to update the scoreboard. At the end of level, if the player collides with an enemy, we destroy the player and we start the level all over again. Well, we're going to need to reset the score. So we're going to add an action which sets the score back to 0. Go to System. Under Global and Local Variables, choose Set Value, and we want to set the value of score to 0. Drag this action up to right before when we restart the layout. So if the player dies, we destroy the player, we wait 3 seconds, we make sure to set the score back to 0 so that when the game restarts, we restart from 0. So that's one case in which we have to manage the score. The other case is when the player collects a coin. Remember, that's one of the player's goals. For that, we need the player event sheet. In the player event sheet, we have an event group called Goal, and there is a trigger in here. This event block and its actions are triggered whenever the player collides with any of the coins. Currently, we just destroy the coin and we subtract 1 from the coins left global variable that we're using to track whether the player has all the coins. We want to be able to increment, to add 100 to the score every time the player collides with the coin. So similarly, we're going to add an action. System, and instead of set value, under global and local variables, we're going to use add to. What are we adding to? The score. How much are we adding? A value of 100. And done. So this isn't it though. Just modifying the global variable score doesn't update the scoreboard. Anytime we change this score global variable, we're going to have to update the scoreboard. We're going to have to set its text. So that is an action. Add action. Choose our scoreboard. Remember, our scoreboard is a text object, so we're going to set text. What are we going to set the text to? Whatever the value is of the score global variable. And press done. So whenever the player collides with the coin, we will destroy the coin, subtract 1 from coins left, add 100 to the score, and importantly, update the scoreboard to the new value of score. Let's play the game and see if everything's working. As you can see, I start with 0 for my score. As I collect coins, the score is incremented by 100, and the new value is reflected on my scoreboard. And if for some reason I was to fall to my fiery death, the score would be reset to 0, and next time I play the layout, I would start all over again. Importantly, remember you can use the debug layout feature. Any of the global variables are kept on the first page. See where coins left is 15 and score is 0? As I play the game, I should be able to track the global variables. I collected 2 coins, and as you can see, the value of the score global variable is 200, and the coins left is 15 minus 2, or 13. Before we leave, let's go to Layers, and we're going to lock this HUD layer. Remember, the HUD layer needs to be on top of game. and it also should have opacity 80, parallax 00. Control S to save your game, or file save, whichever you prefer.